really, at the end of the day, it's just a matter of a macro market. It's just what happens.
That's why it's really important to have a plan. Have a plan and understand what your goals are.
In fact, my camel out there is suffering right now with a broken back.
So I actually found Pepe when it was only a couple of hours old, and I'm like, oh, this is a funny meme.
Oh my god.
Yo! Who is this degen?
The old man is swing trading over years at a time. And it's like, that's where the real money is made.
The answer is impermanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
If you're aware, if you're disciplined, you can hone that into further financial growth.
Financial freedom, so where you can actually live life and not have to be constantly living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, more or less, right?
Well, aloha, degens, ladies and germs, boys and girls, ducks and squirrels of all ages. Welcome to book club number 15, where we're going to be covering chapter 2 of SciVive, Richard Hart's book. The chapter that we are covering is the chapter on the body. Joining us today, I have my lovely panelists and co-hosts. We're going to be having another panelist join us here shortly. Farmer Jay will be hopping in. As I recall, I've sent him out the link, so we will see him here shortly. But up until that point, let's go ahead and run around the table and introduce ourselves for the folks at home who have never seen us before. Mr. Zenith, welcome, bro. Can you give the folks a quick introduction, who you are, what you do, and what's new and exciting with you, my friend?
I absolutely can. Good to see you, Will. I am sort of the jack of all trades and suit and tie, blue or white collar person around here. I am not the meme coin expert that some of the other folks on the panel are, so they are the ones currently making the most money, and I am watching myself count 60-day cycles and thinking to myself, man, am I bad at counting? But that's what I got going on for me. I host the other week of book club, which we have not decided what the book for next time is. I would like to get a special guest, but we will have to see about that. Other than that, I'm going to pass it over to someone who is making money right now, and his name is Nate McGettit. How we doing, brother?
Yeah, in the green room, we were kind of making fun of the fact that I've been banging on the drum about the P Stables God trio for a while now, and I mean, you can see what PDI is doing. Plus, you can look at P, USDC, and USDT, and that's all just rising. Which I've also lately been doing P wrapped Bitcoin, BTC, right? And that also has been doing pretty decent, and it's only going to go up from here. So, yeah, not financial advice, but yeah, I just don't mess with these. Anyways, yep, I am Nate McGettit. I am here to talk about SciVive and the chapter of the body. So yeah, I mean, what's up, Sam?
Not much. Thanks for passing it over, Nate. My name is Sam. I'm the owner of Bungalows for Bachelors and Stevenson Integrated Designs. You want to learn about residential construction, I'm your guy. That's where you can check it out. Otherwise, I'm here with these other degenerates talking about massive ways to make massive amounts of money, and that's what we're here for. So let's, get right into it. Mr. Farmer Jay, I see you are.
Yes, I am also here.
Excellent.
I am Farmer
Welcome.
Jay, another guy just like Zenith that is making no money in the market right now because I didn't invest in meme coins.
Oh my goodness. Well, welcome, Farmer Jay. It's good to. Oh no, we lost Sam. Welcome, Jay. Farmer Jay. Welcome to our stream, my friend. What the? Oh, look at that. We're playing fun games now, I guess.
I think we lost Zenith.
Yeah, we lost Z.
Oh, we lost Zenith. Okay.
Yeah, just
Where's this music coming from? Mrs. Producer, could you give that music a pause when you get a moment?
I am not hearing.
Oh, is that me?
Yeah,
you guys don't hear music,
bro.
What the hell is going? Oh my goodness, that is all me. I don't know what the fuck's going on with my phone. It started playing a Lettuce song that that Mr. Angry Twinkie had sent me like some weeks ago that I guess was sitting in the background or whatever. That's strange. Well, folks, completely disregard what I'm talking about. Farmer Jay, welcome to Book Club with us. This is going to be an extra fun episode today. We're going to be talking about the body portion of SciVive, and just basically like some stuff that you guys can do at home to maximize your efficiency for like how you interact with the world and like your corporeal form, how to get strong, how to brush your teeth effectively, all that good stuff. Real quick. Oh, actually, Zenith, I know that we're live on air right now, but I would like you to do the chat shout outs again since I happen to be driving. So After I do this introduction thing, Mrs. Producer, if you could please scrounge up some cool chats from the folks at home, and then I'll run over a quick little intro, talk about, not an intro, but like a quick little synopsis of what Chapter 2 is about in SciVive. And then we'll hop into community chats and get right on into the discussion. Oh, and by the way, my name is Will. I realized I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. My name is Will Stevenson. I am another member of the DGen Roundtable. I do a lot of the networking, driving around, meeting people, shaking babies, kissing hands, all that good stuff. So I'm just glad to be here and ready to rock and roll. So for you guys who have not read SciVive, the things that are covered in SciVive are basically as follows. It's more or less a generalized summary of preventative maintenance and like positive points of information that you guys can use to apply to make yourselves have like the most efficient and maximally effective like physical health while you traverse the plains of this earth. So the first thing that he talks about in SciVive is benchmarking yourself. And that's more or less the concept of you want to know like how tall you are. You want to know what your BMI is. You want to know like if you're right or left-handed. You want to know what kind of eating habits are good. You want to be tracking all of your health stats and all of the things that you are, because like what's not measured isn't managed. So the best way that you can control your health is by to first measure all the aspects of your health, whatever they may be, and then you can from there like write down like your specific goals. So say you want to bulk up like and get like 3 inches bigger biceps or something. You would now have a record to shoot for because you know your starting point, therefore you know your finishing point. So the first part is like he calls it the body checklist, kind of like pilots would do on an airplane. They run through a little checklist before they take off and do stuff. And the things that he mentions there are things like fitness, grooming, presentation, posture, body language, breath, smell, all sorts of things. So it's like just a little body checklist of stuff you want to go over. After that, he jumps on into BMI, which is body mass index. Then he talks about sleep. He talks about the importance of oxygen, then diet and weight. He speaks of the importance of focusing on desire over optimization as far as it goes to making changes within your life. It's more important for most people to figure out why they want to do things than it is to figure out how they're going to do things. The how is for the people who are the experts who have already figured out the whys and stuff like that. So desire versus optimization. Then he goes on to talk about like maintaining good dental hygiene, and how it's a lot easier to gain weight than it is to work weight off, specifically from like a dieting perspective and things like that. After that, he goes into vitamins and supplement. Then he gives a little bit of advice on how to best use the bathroom and expel the I'm trying to think of like a good politically correct way to say it, but basically how to pee and how to poop like to maximum effectiveness. He then talks about like checking your breath and making sure you got good dental hygiene from like the perspective of other people that are like observing with you and you're interacting with, how to smile best, what you can do to maximize having like good clear skin. Then he talks about vision and how to like some things to consider when it comes to like color correction and things of that nature. He then goes into hearing, talks a lot about that. He delves for quite a bit into the exercise and fitness area, and then he like specifically starts theorizing about the usefulness of steroids versus like regular workout, and like how that could be a different tool that you can use to achieve your means and goals. And then he talks about the 40% mental rule, which is kind of like oftentimes when folks are working out, they'll reach a point where they think that they're done, and what that really means is like your body's reached about 40% of its capacity. So like once you start feeling like, oh, it's time to quit, a lot of folks, and actually the rule comes from the Navy SEALs, but it's basically like the 40% rule is when you think you're finally done and you can't do anymore, you can actually do about another 60% more before your body finally fails. And just learning where your actual failure points are versus where your comfort fail points are pretty important. After that, let's see, 40%. Okay, warm-ups, talks about that. Oh, habits. So warm-ups in the respect of warming up before you work out, and then developing like proper healthy workout plans. After that, he goes into talking about germs and health, alternate medicines versus like drug safety, tolerances and adaptations that our bodies basically go through. Like once you start drinking, your body will develop a tolerance or an adaptation to make it necessary that you'll have to drink more in order to get the same effect. Same thing with like other drugs and things. Then he goes for a little bit into cancer he dives back into drinking and talks a little bit more about the specifics of that. And then towards the final part of the chapter, he speaks about evolution, heredity, and loss of ideas. And that's basically a summary of the of the body portion of SciVive. So for those of you guys who did not listen to the hour-long book on tape or read the presentation, that's basically the meat and potatoes of the book. And we're going to dive into some specific topics, but we're going to do that after we go ahead and shout out the folks at home who are watching. So Mr. Zenith, why don't you go ahead and take it away, bro?
Absolutely. All right. I believe we have 3 starred chats we want to give shout outs to. First one in the chat, we got Centurion54X says, good afternoon, DGens. Good afternoon to you, sir. After that, we got Russ. He says, hi, everyone. Sorry if I have dog breath. Well, good news for you. This chapter might help you figure that one out. And then lastly, we got Mr. Angry Twinkie saying that Farmer J stands for Farmer Jacked. I mean, our man does have the bench press in the background there, so sure he's putting up some weight time to time, I hope. All
I think
that
it's
is all we
there
got.
for show.
True. We also have Mr. Angry Twinkie one last time saying, hope everyone is having a great weekend. Absolutely. It's Friday nights. Good start to the weekend. And
Actually,
for everybody out there, thanks for hanging out with us.
On that Farmer Jack, I'm just fat. I just look like I'm fat. He even goes through it in the book. It's right in that book, in that chapter, where if you got a little bit of weight on you, it looks like you're jacker than you are. So yeah,
there you go.
I'm trying to do. I'm trying.
It's why my arms look so big.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Zenith, go ahead and take it away again.
What are we doing, good sir? That is all the.
Oh, was that it? That was all the chats?
That's it.
Oh, excellent. Fantastic. I didn't quite realize that. Sweet. I like it. Lots of thinking, not a lot of talking. Outstanding. I'm all about it. All right. So guys, the first thing that I want to jump into here, if there's no objections, or if you do have an objection, then you'll just have to wait till I'm done with my sentence. But the first thing that I want to cover is the first thing that he touches on in the book. In the book is he says that your body is the most important vehicle that you'll ever own, and it's important for you to do what he would consider like the airplane checklist of the of like your body and stuff. So I want to see, first off, does anyone disagree with that statement? And if so, or if not, like, what are your thoughts on both your body being your most important vehicle and or your physical airplane checklist thing?
Well, okay. So the kind of the thought process for me, and one of the things that I kept running into with this chapter was, yeah, he's going into technically taking care of your body and all that, and you know, we all know that, right? But at the same time, it's like with a lot of the ways that you'd be taking care of your body, there's a lot of other things that you would consider maybe living life that you would not be able to do, you know? So it's kind of like you can have the checklist and all that and go down, you know, hey, this is what I want to do to live my most healthy. But then there are those times when, I mean, you just got to say, fuck it, throw it away and just go get drunk or something like that, right?
Yeah, you mean like there's nuance to it? Like we're not going to always be doing our checklist every single day all the time? Something like that. Okay, sweet. I see you're nodding over there. I can't really see a whole lot on the screen. I am focusing on driving as well. But yeah, I would agree. Like there's definitely times where you got to be focused on, you know, having fun and partying and stuff. But I think that running through, like, maybe not like a literal physical checklist where you're holding up a book and like writing down notes and being like, hey, have I checked if I got stinky feet today? Have I made sure that I did, you know, my 100 million crunches for the week? Or like whatever the heck. I think it's more of like the generalized concept of like, you know, like the have you guys ever heard like the spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch thing before you leave the house? You check for your wallet, check for your watch, check to make sure you got your sunglasses and your shades or whatever. You know, doing like that sort of thing. I think that it's a good little mental exercise for maybe not for our community, because we seem to have some pretty reasonable people, but there's definitely a lot of people in the real world that like they would do well to, you know, like sniff their armpits before they go to work and be like, oh snap, I don't actually smell very great or whatever. So perhaps this book or that idea is more so written to them, but I find that it's oftentimes good to revisit, like, what'd you call it, like common sense thoughts or something. Like when it's like, I know I should be doing stuff, and then like people remind me like, oh yeah, I should be doing that thing that I already knew that I should be doing. I don't know. Do any of you guys think the same way? Are you guys all about preventative maintenance education? That's something that I find myself.
Here's a dirty little secret about engineering is that we all talk about preventive maintenance, but no one actually wants to do preventative maintenance, aka it actually takes time regularly to keep doing things over and over to make sure that stuff just functions basically. You can kind of look at this and be like, this is just the entropy of the universe, aka you're never even going to get even because you're always having losses somewhere. So just to keep functional, you have to keep putting in effort over and over. And that gets monotonous, boring, and most of all, it requires either discipline or a lot of motivation to get done. And I think the body's no different thing. It's kind of the idea where it's like, the more investment you have in something, the more you care about it. Or I guess you could also look at it conversely, which is like the more you get out of something, the more you focus on it. And your body is this thing that you're just born with. You got it from the beginning. You understand your own limitations. That makes sense. However, at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that you don't think about. And I'm sure you're going to start thinking about it more and more once you get older. Like, I mean, I'm rapidly approaching that 30-year-old milestone marker, and I've been bench pressing a lot, and I have to make sure that I actually warm up and think about not destroying a rotator cuff. It's like these are new challenges that you have to think about more and more. And the later on in life you get, the more preventative maintenance there's going to be just to keep maintaining that bare minimum standard of just health or living wellness or standard of living.
I like that you brought up the engineering aspect, because that reminds me of like I'm sure that because you were an engineer in the Coast Guard, correct? That was your rate. So like, go ahead.
No, you're good. But yeah,
okay.
So I'll expand on this a little bit for you. So when I was on the ship, one of the things that you did is when you're underway out at sea, there's somebody on watch 24/7 in both up on the bridge and down in the engine room. And down in the engine room, you're there for 4 hours. And every hour at the top of the hour, you go do a round. You check every bit of equipment, every piece of machinery, whether it's running or not. And then you log it. And you double check your logs as well to make sure that everything is being tracked, everything's being maintained. And it's pretty much just there to keep an eye on everything so that you can start seeing if something's out of whack, if things are not working properly. And eventually, preventive maintenance comes in. There are certain times where we're like, all right, it's that time of the month, like 1st and 14th of the month, paychecks come in, and then you also got to go do some preventative maintenance and checks on stuff.
Yep. That reminds me, one of the things that, hang on, I'm going to tell this quick little story, Nate, and then I'll toss it right over to you. It reminds me a little bit of like aircraft mechanics. Guys who were in the aviation field, and one of the things that they said is for every hour of flight time that like a helicopter or a jet is up in the air, it requires about eight hours of preventative maintenance to like where they take everything apart on the helicopter. They check everything, then they put it all back together again to make sure it all works for the next time it goes and flies. It's like when you were speaking about your rotator cuff, it reminded me like, hey, if you don't check to make sure that like you've got good like supports, like if you're going to go boxing and you don't wrap your wrists, then you could get a wrist injury. If you're going to go like bench press and you know that you're getting to the age where it's like, hey, like I have to pay attention to certain things, like these are important considerations. And so it reminded me of that a little bit. Nate, why don't you go ahead and go with your thought, bro?
So what I wanted to say was that as far as preventative maintenance goes on your body, right? A lot of that has to do with your mindset. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of a trade-off that happens between the health of your body and the fun times of, things that you do to release stress and all that with your brain.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an interesting little ratio there that I don't think he really takes into account during this chapter.
Well, can you expand on your thought a little bit? Can you explain a little bit more what you mean about how the mind is the most of it?
Yeah. So think about it this way, right? If you're constantly stressed out about, like, say, work or whatever, that cortisol that is in your bloodstream then starts decaying your body from within. So
okay.
So then how do you get rid of that stress? Well, I don't know. Let's go do like a sport or something. However, that much activity, can really wear down on your tendons and muscles and stuff like that, right? What about the other side of things? How about you go to a party or whatever and you start drinking a bunch of alcohol and, just loosen up, right? See, now you're getting rid of that stress, and you're sort of resetting your mind to be able to continue on in daily life, right? But at the same time, you're inputting something that, as he talks about a lot in this chapter, is really damaging to your body. So it's an interesting dichotomy that the mind has with the body, and as far as like health goes.
So you can almost like use your, or maybe not use, but your mind can almost like misuse your body by like with the cortisol release and the stress implications and all that. That's what you mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And then
Yep.
like also on the positive side.
Yeah, if your brain is in the wrong mindset, right? If you're, like, say again, stressed out, then that actually damages your body. And doing things that he talks about damaging your body, like, say, again, I'll go back to the alcohol example, right? That is technically damaging to your body, but it can release all of the stress and everything in your mind, and so therefore your mind no longer is harming your body.
So it's like a trade-off. You
Yep,
trade the
it's like
one
a
for the
trade-off.
other temporarily. Okay.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting is he never really mentioned anything like that. But I get the feeling it's kind of like it started off with
He does go into the drugs part a little bit later in the chapter, and we can
Yeah.
touch on that. But yeah, you're right. He doesn't exactly talk about what you're talking about there. That's pretty good. I like that. Sam, Farmer J, do you guys have any thoughts?
Sure. Jess on Farmer J? Oh, he's muted.
Go ahead, Sam.
Okay. So yeah, I was going to basically back up or add on top of what Nate had to say about that kind of thing. I wasn't necessarily thinking as much about like drinking and stuff like that. That's very damaging to your body. But I mean, there are a lot of very fun extreme sports that are very healthy and good for people, but they can also be very damaging. So there's some kind of balance to be had there, of course, with risk management and stuff. But yeah, I very much have to agree with what Nate said.
Okay. Farmer J?
Forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, that's all
I'll
good,
pick this-
broski. Oh, go
I'll
ahead,
pick
Z.
this one up. Nate, I think you got a really good point here, which is that it's more of a meta understanding of this chapter in particular, which is that the reason, in my opinion, why we start off with the checklist is trying to approach this chapter from a very empirical or logical standpoint. And like you talked about earlier, which is that understanding, like specifically when Richard Hart talks about how alcohol is like theoretically only negative for you from the biological standpoint of the body. Yes, it is. However, at the same time, the approach of the chapter is reflected in this, which is that a lot of the things that we're going to talk about from here on out have pretty much been approached from the idea of maximizing your body to live as long as possible, as best as possible. Best is defined as like least defects, least injuries, and maximization of reliability and duration. That's pretty much how it seems he approaches this chapter. So bringing that up, it brings up the idea of trade-offs, which is that this chapter, we're definitely going to talk about ideas and try to understand why Richard Hart is proposing the things that he is. But at the same time, there's plenty of different lenses and views to look at this and understand that like there are different ways to approach life and get different things out of certain aspects. So I'm sure we'll get more into that later, but I think this is a good distinction to cover early.
Yeah,
Yep, and then one last thing to add on.
I think that's why on chapter 1 he goes over the mind.
Yes.
First, and then we get to the body, because you're not going to have a healthy body without a healthy mind first. Like you have to be able to do all these things mentally first in order for you to prepare yourself, in order for you to take care of your body. Just like you were talking about that preemptive maintenance. As you get older, I don't know how old you guys, but I'm almost 40. So you start feeling that a lot worse on your body. And it's just like maintenance on a car or a ship. It's easier to do the maintenance than trying to put the fires out. Once the shit hits the fan and your body starts breaking down, like it's a lot harder to fix issues that you have now. You could have took care of them a lot quicker, but now they're just prolonging. A lot of us, I don't think, like me, I haven't been to the doctor in a while. Not that I don't have insurance, I just don't go. There's stuff on me here that hurts, aches and stuff, but some of us just forego that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a free choice. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, me being the blue collar guy for my entire life, yes, I know that very well. But the one last thing I wanted to add on from what Zenith was talking about, and yeah, Farmer, I completely 100% agree with you. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So the one thing that I've realized about the human body is that human body is very adaptable, and I almost feel like the way that God has created, our biology is to be able to heal itself in a way that can take the issues that will help us release stress and things like that from the mind, and be able to get ourselves back into a good mindset. Because if you get screwed up in the head, it's extremely difficult to try and heal all that, and even then the scars never really go away, the mental scars, versus something like with your body. It's actually a lot harder to permanently damage your body in that sort of fashion, unless you go pretty wild on something. But then if you do go wild on something, there's something wrong up here automatically anyways. So
we seem to have jumped spots. That's okay. I might have lost connection there. That'll happen periodically. So apologies in advance if I cut out. But I will be back, which is good. That actually, so it sounds like we've all had some excellent thoughts. Does anyone want to throw in some last final thoughts and comments before we tie it up and move on to the next thing? All right. Oh, Sam's got. I don't know if that was I think that was a thumbs up and not a 1 for one thought. So I'm going to assume he gave me a thumbs up, and we're going to go ahead and move on to the next topic, which is being awake alongside others is the best. So sleep is the next topic of conversation. It is best to sleep when everyone else is speaking, or everyone else is sleeping, excuse me. It's best to sleep when other people are sleeping, because then you're all awake at the same time, and you guys and people can, work together and be cooperative and all that other stuff. The people that benefit from sleeping when other people are awake are the type of people.
There he goes. I'll finish off what he's trying to say here, which is that specifically, this is kind of the idea of business hours, aka your most efficient and effective time of the day is during the day when everyone else is also awake and at their peak, so that we can all operate at our best together. If you're staying up late, theoretically that means that you are somehow justifying that the activity you're doing that late to forego the sleep means that activity that you're doing late at night is somehow more important than the stuff that's going to happen the next day. However, that goes back to the first part of this one, which is that there might be something flawed with this thinking, because majority of people are going to be working during the day when we can all work at our best and work together. So it's kind of saying that there's not really a great point to be staying up late. And if there is, well, it must be a very exceptional case.
Yeah, you're right. Like me, I do that a lot. I stay up late, and I hate myself in the morning for it. I absolutely hate myself in the morning. Always thinking I should have just gone to sleep earlier, and now I feel like crap the rest of the day at work. Like right now, I'm sleep deprived. I'm like working off 3 hours of sleep.
Oh, geez, bro. My goodness.
I have to say here that there's something extremely valuable that typically happens between the hours of like 10 and 2 a.m. around in Las Vegas area, typically involving nightclubs and things. So if you're in the area, then that's usually a place where foregoing sleep is extremely valuable as an investment.
I've never heard of these things.
There's an interesting concept I heard around that Las Vegas nightlife kind of lifestyle, so to speak, which is that I've heard some people think that the activity during that time is very important, and they also think the activity during business hours is also very important. So what some people have done, I've heard, is they actually alter their sleep schedule slightly. So it's pretty much you work till 5 o'clock, immediately take a melatonin, try to conk out and go to sleep, get 8 hours of sleep, wake up at, what would that be, like 1 a.m. pretty much, and then go catch like the tail end of the nightlife, do all the mingling, do all the networking that you want to do, and then at that point you kind of just stay up a little bit and you get a head start on your work day. So it's like these people have dictated that this part of the night there is something very important which is worthwhile staying up, because they say the other people are up and about and I need to be up and about with those people.
Hunter Biden approves.
This is a Hunter Biden approved strategy, I will say. So do with that what you will.
I will say when I was over in Spain, I was working on a flight line over there. The Spaniards have a very strange sleep and work cycle. It's nothing at all like over here in America. What they do is they basically wake up at about 3 in the afternoon, and then they start their day. They, do stuff and like do business and party all night until like about 5 in the morning, and then they go to sleep, and then they basically just rinse and repeat all day. It was very strange being over in Spain and like working on a Spanish flight line in like American hours, and then we'd like go out into town like after work got over, and everyone was like lazy and groggy and getting up and like all that stuff, and then like our little Liberty buses would bring us back to base like right when the nightlife started popping around like midnight or whatever. So there's different cultures that adapt to the sleep cycle for whatever reason. In Spain, it's crazy hot during the day. It's like stupid hot. So they do like, I guess it's called like siesta culture or something over there. But that's another example. And there's like plenty of places and times where they do strange things. I know in like Alaska or like Norway, at certain parts of the year, like the sun just doesn't go down. And so like what they do instead of like fireworks up there is they'll like launch cars off of cliffs and stuff, since you can't see fireworks because there is no nighttime on the 4th of July. But like, I don't know, there's all sorts of weird cultures. But what do you guys think of like, what do you guys think of the importance of having a consistent sleep cycle, whether it's, super late in the morning or super late in the evening or whatever the case may be? Is that something? So like Farmer Jay, you were saying that like you beat yourself up over the head and stuff whenever you stay up late. One of the things that Richard talks about in the book is like, what is the importance of the stuff that we do at night? And I'm super duper guilty of this too. Are the things that I'm doing at night super urgent, or is it just I think it's super urgent because it's like my only free time? Do you ever feel like the nighttime is basically your only free time to get shit done or like to get your goals accomplished and stuff? Am I alone in that?
No, I usually feel that way, but I usually just end up fucking off most of the time. And
oh yeah,
and then I have things to do the next day. Like right now, like I said, I'm half asleep, so I'm not as sharp. And I think that's one thing that really affects you. When you don't have the proper sleep, you're just not as sharp. Like your mind is not as sharp. You don't work the same. Your responses are a lot slower. So I try to get sleep. And for me personally, as long as I can get maybe 6 hours of sleep a day, I'll be fine. Like even if I take a 3-hour nap.
Yeah.
Because I usually do that after work. I'll try to take a nap. Sometimes I go long. I'll stay up. I'll do a workout and then I'll come back to my desk and try to go over the 10,000 Telegram chats, And
yep, there is a lot.
Yeah, you'll spend a lot of time scrolling on that, but I give myself a time frame, and I usually end up fucking off past that time frame, looking at stupid things I shouldn't be looking at. Just wasting time. Be like, all right, I should go to sleep at this time. I give myself 2 hours to look at these chats or go through my forms and whatever. But then you start you have access to the whole world, so you start looking at other things, and that like I do feel it on my body. In the mornings, I really feel it on my body when I stay up way too late.
Yeah.
See, the important thing, Farmer, is routine, right? So what I've learned working all nights my entire life up until I went into pest control, and then I had my first day job, basically. What I've learned is that you need to have a routine of consistency. And so from like Monday to Friday, every single day, it's, I wake up at 7, 30 minutes before I actually get to work, head out there, and I'll be kind of waking up in the middle of like all the meetings and stuff, but the stuff is that they talk about is so stupid in my mind that I don't need to be awake for that. And and then by the time I'm done with work, I come home, and then I've got a couple of hours, right around anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to get stuff done, right? And so because I'm still in work mode, I do all that right away, and usually that's like crypto stuff. But at that point, that's when you hit that nighttime, right? And it's usually right around when Cass will make dinner. That's kind of like the point of like, okay, work is done. And then what I do is I say, okay, technically speaking, I could keep working, I could get more done. and I could advance myself, ascend even further, right? However, again, we're going back to like the mindset issue, right?
Yeah.
I need to prepare myself for the next day. And so at that point, what I'll do is fuck off. That's what I'll do. And I will allow myself to waste my time.
It's like the unwinding zone, right?
Yes, right there. I call it peace. But it allows me to just go and take a deep breath and like, okay, let's prepare for the next day. And then I'll just fuck off. I'll get on YouTube or I'll watch anime or something like that, right? I don't have to think about things.
Yeah. Yeah, like it is interesting how much energy thinking about stuff like takes out of you. So I think one of the things Richard had mentioned in the last chapter, Mind, is that like thinking burns calories. Like thinking hard makes you lose weight. Like the super skinny, like smart professors and whatnot, like always just sitting around and thinking about things and like that burns calories in like the form of like the same sort of type of calorie burning as like worry or stressing. But you know, obviously thinking it could be also a big old slew of problems. But you're absolutely right, bro. Like there is a point in time in the day where it's like, fuck, I gotta turn this brain machine off, let it cool down, let it recuperate, let the fans like turn off and like get that motherboard back down to room temperature before you flick it on the next day for, you know, high activity RAM stuff. But that's a good point, bro. Does anyone else have like a point in the day where you guys like actively turn your brain off?
Yeah, I want to jump right in here. So I myself in particular, I have a very interesting schedule because I have gotten to the point where I am self-employed. And so I can decide, and the work that I'm doing isn't really related to the day time. I can do it kind of whenever. So because of that, I can move my schedule around to whatever I want to be creating. And unfortunately, I have not been able to lock something down. I've not chosen to lock something down specifically. I've kind of just been flexing around as things are needed. But when I was doing blue collar work, framing and siding and stuff up in Washington, I had to have a very specific schedule because I was catering to someone else's schedule. And I have to say, like, there was a very clear benefit of saying, nope, I am going to bed at 7 p.m. I'm going to wake up exactly at this time. And I did it every single day to the point where it's like my body, I made sure I got 8 hours of sleep every single night. And my body was just like, it knew when the alarm went off. It was basically my brain would wake up like 1 minute before my alarm would go off almost consistently. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm awake. I don't feel that groggy, like, oh, I have to get out of bed thing. Like I hate that feeling. And so that was very good. But in the situation I'm in now where like I can flex things around, it's a little bit different. And I did want to talk a little bit about the taking the break thing. I would not describe my lifestyle as one filled with breaks, and it didn't sound like yours was either. I mean, you're continuing to put in time and effort after you're done working. You're going to focus on this other different task, and then after that, you're going to unwind. I would describe what I do more as like intermittent unwinding through an entire day of like productivity. And so like I just do it a little bit differently, I suppose. For example, if I'm like spending a bunch of hours drawing, and I know I have to draw for 12 hours today, then I'm going to basically do like maybe 4-hour chunks of that. And I'm just going to go shoot a basketball for 30 minutes and think about nothing except put a ball in a hoop. And it's just that is like that chill zone where it's like I'm not consciously working my brain. So I think that's a healthy thing to have, is that off time. Because, I mean, it's just like a computer. It's just biological hardware instead of wires and stuff.
That's fascinating, the different types of people, because I'm a momentum guy. So once I'm going, you just keep going until I have to force myself to stop, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I have that way. But for you, it's a little bit different, you know, where it's like, you know, you do a lot really fast, you know, you heat up and then it's like, okay, time to cool off. Okay, let's go at it again and then cool off. It's kind of fascinating. I love how everybody's so different.
That is interesting. Yeah, I would say, Nate, I'm similar to you. I'm more of a momentum player. I have to stay doing the same thing for long stretches and then end it and go on to something else. What about you, Z? You haven't spoken up a whole lot on this particular bit. What do you got?
Well, I had something for sleep, but when it comes
go
to
ahead.
I'll stick to this for now. when it comes to the idea of like how you work, I think the idea of the flow state is something that is pretty applicable for this. I can't remember the name of it, but there's another theory as well. I almost want to call it the Pomodoro or the Pareto, not Pareto principle.
Yeah, Pomodoro.
Pomodoro. Sorry.
Pomodoro. Do the difficult thing.
No, it's more of I think Pomodoro is the one that's like the average attention span is really about 25 minutes, pretty close to it. And then after that, it's this idea of your brain kind of wants to like cycle through very efficient and then very inefficient work, so that you have like 25 minutes of like deep focus intensive work, and then you kind of need 5 minutes to just like take not necessarily even take like all the gas off, but even just like take a step back or just like lighten up a little bit before you can really dive back into another bit of like deep intensive work. It's like it's idea that like focus comes in cycles. And then conversely, another one, which I think Nate is more alluding to, is the idea of flow or a flow state. It's this magical in-between ground where you get like real satisfaction out of whatever thing you're trying to do or accomplish at the time. And it's this middle point between something is too easy or something is too difficult or intensive. And it's that perfect thing where it's like you feel challenged enough that you keep staying engaged and you want to keep working at it, but it's not so easy that it becomes monotonous. So it's not too hard that it's discouraging, and it's not boring either. It's that perfect middle ground. The flow state is something that a lot of people talk about when it comes to a lot of creative types doing work, or people that are like athletes, or people that are doing something kind of like kinetic, so to speak, which is that your brain almost like zones out, loses track of time, and is really just focused on the task at hand, because that perfect difficulty setting is what really just locks in your brain to get that hyper focus, and then you also get that enjoyment and satisfaction out of it. So you keep getting that dopamine hit, so that you feel that reward for whatever effort you're putting in. So whichever one of these ideas that you fall into, I understand that, especially when it comes to psychology, because humans can be so different. This is more of a softer science, so to speak, kind of like sociology. But there's absolutely different ways that are recognized about how we function, and understanding who you are and which one you more fall into is going to help you maximize your time and what you do in your life.
That is a good way to tie up this subject. I think is like there's a whole bunch of different ways to accomplish these goals. There's a whole bunch of different tools in your toolbox. We've gone through quite a few of them, and I think that it's up to the folks at home to figure out which one you are. If you're more of the Nate style, of the Nate and my style of like doing the momentum play, or more of the Sam style, or the you call it the Pomodoro technique, right, Zenith? I
think so. Yeah, I'm gonna have to double check that one.
That sounds familiar.
Easily be a pasta. Pomodoro.
I've heard
it's a sauce, and it's the method. Yeah, it's both. Por qué no los dos?
Por qué no los dos? I love it. All right, sweet. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do a super duper smooth transition into the next topic of conversation, which is the health and diet slash eating stuff. So I just want to go through a couple quick little bullet points here. Touch on some things that Richard had talked about during his like maximizing your eating efficiency stuff. And one of the things that he mentioned was like straw drinking to keep like liquids off of your teeth for as much like time as possible. And I never really had thought about it before, but like when you drink through a straw, like if you drink coffee and you don't want to stain your teeth, like if you just drink it through a cup, it's going to slosh all around your teeth and it's going to do stuff. But if you drink through a straw, it's basically going from the straw to like your tongue and the roof of your mouth, and then down into your throat, and basically never touching your teeth or whatever, because most people don't like slosh coffee around drinking through a straw. So I thought that was just a cool little fun fact. And I'm not terribly fond of drinking through straws, but that was something that I was thinking about that he had mentioned in there. And then outside of that, the other stuff he talks about during the eating is more like focused on the weight loss and the philosophical side of eating. So he mentions that like let's see. Oh, okay, so I have it written down here, the 80-20%. So like the Pareto principle of like diet to workout. So when it comes to maintaining like a healthy weight, like 80% of the effort is spent on, or like 80% of the results comes from the way that you put food into your mouth and which foods you decide to put in and which ones you decide to neglect, and like their quantities and stuff. And about 20% of it is like you going out and like working out and burning the calories and doing physical exercise and all that stuff. So I thought that was interesting. Most folks, when they're trying to lose weight, they go for like the exercise option more so than the dieting option. But really, the diet gives you about does about 4 times the effort as the food does. And that ties in a little bit to I don't know if he says this sentence word for word, but he touches on the idea of like, it's a lot easier to resist things that are in the store, to just like walk past the aisle, than it is to like not eat the things once it's in your house. One of the things that my mom's husband's sister says is, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. So that goes for like, if you buy a whole bunch of candies and chocolates and bad foods and stuff, like when you're out shopping, like, and you bring it home, it's going to be in your house, and then you're probably going to eat it at some point. So the best way to like not eat bad food is to just not buy it when you're at the store. And this is something that Sam and I talk about a little bit. We have our own little personal technique here, especially when we were doing towers together, is we wouldn't like hang out in the middle of the stores when we would go shopping for food, because, you know, we had to restock our Connex's refrigerators and things. We would go to a store, and then we'd immediately go to the outside edge of the store, like the grocery store, and we'd go around the outside edge where like all the vegetables, all the produce, all the like the fresh breads, and like all the dairy and all that stuff is stored. You know, once you start wandering around in the middle of the store where all the like the candy and the pancake mix and the licorice and like the
crap.
Yeah, all the processed crap. It's all in the middle of the store. And all the stuff that's like closer to, I guess, nature or whatever, you know, that's all on the outside of the store. So that's one of the techniques that Sam and I would use. Thank you for that, Farmer Jay. I appreciate that. That's like, it is all just a whole bunch of processed crap. Not to say that processed crap is always bad, but there's a much higher likelihood that the processed stuff, yeah, is going to be delicious, and it's going to be made like the most like high leverage way possible to get you to keep buying more of it, which generally means like more sugar, less substance. Yeah.
Very convenient.
Yeah, exactly.
You just open it, pop it in your mouth, and next thing you know, you're 300 pounds.
Yeah, exactly. And like that was another thing that he was saying, is like most of the snacks and most of the things, they add up to about 300 calories. And most people, like, it's important to do your body mass index and to find out what your BMR is, your basic metabolic rate. So that way you can figure out how many calories am I burning an hour just by like sitting around and breathing. And then how many calories am I going to burn throughout the day by like walking? How many am I going to burn like doing hardcore exercise? And, you know, you add all that up, and that gives you your basically like your calorie count for the day. And then if you go over that calorie count number, you basically start gaining weight. And then if you're under that calorie count number, you start losing weight, you know? So that's some of the stuff from the food things. Another thing that he didn't mention this one, but this is something that I thought of in particular, is if you're going to go shopping, you want to go shopping after you've eaten. You never want to go shopping for food when you're hungry, because then you'll buy some dumb shit, because you're essentially casting like a spell on yourself, like, oh, I'm casting this hungry spell. And so everything that I see is going to be like, oh, this is of course a wise decision. Why would I not buy 10 candy bars? You know, like, I'm super guilty of this. Like, just the other day, I went into the store and I bought a shit ton of like granola bars. And it's like, I don't normally eat granola bars. I mostly eat like eggs and beef and chicken and cheese and, you know, like basically like meat and dairy products and stuff, with occasional vegetables and some carbs sprinkled in here or there. Yeah, and shortbread cookies. I'm very guilty. Shortbread cookies are that's my weakness. And I have to be very careful about those. But like the other day, I was hankering for some freaking granola shit. And so I went to the store and I just bought like a crap ton of oatmeal and like granola bars that I don't need, that I really shouldn't be eating, that I know like in my mind I shouldn't be eating, but I was shopping when I was hungry like a fool. So one thing that he didn't mention in the book that if I was the author, I would add in there is like, if you're going to go shopping, don't go shopping while you're hungry. And then the last thing, the last two things, he talks about the harahachibu, which is basically you eat to satisfaction, not to fullness. So what that basically means is like, you know, it's not necessarily always a good idea to eat until you're like, oh man, I'm fucking full. It's like eat to satisfaction. It's like, man, I could keep going. Like I could have that. I could have the rest of this, you know, cocktail shrimp platter. But it's like, nah, I'm gonna save it off for later. I'm gonna do a little bit of delayed gratification. Like we all know in this wonderful Richard Hart ecosystem, we'll delay the gratification of hunger in order to get the better health in the future and stuff. And then the final one is I wrote down sparkly water, and that's just basically like what I've done to trick my brain into not drinking like 3 or 4 or 6 sodas a day is I've just replaced all soda stuff with sparkling water. So that way, like, I can sort of trick my brain into drinking a fun, what like my brain thinks is and has associated with like, oh, this is a fun drink, and this is fancy, and this is cool, and this is like exciting and a treat. Like I've tricked myself into drinking sparkling water instead of like, I get like the different flavored bubblies. You guys see me drinking them on stream all the time. Like I have like little raspberry or lime or whatever bubblies and shit. But drinking sparkly water or like just regular water instead of drinking like soda or sugary beverage or like Monsters or Red Bulls or whatever. So those are like some of the food topics that he touched on right there. And if there's anything that stood out to you guys in that little list or anything that stood out for this little portion of the chapter, let's go ahead and open up the floor for discussion right now. So does anyone got anything on this? I can't quite see the mute buttons.
Yeah. So, what's really difficult is when you have a woman in your life that cooks great food. And of course, she wants to have that food available, at all times. And so there's a lot of food around the house,
Yep. That is both a blessing and a not necessarily a curse, but like just something that you got to be aware of. It's like, if you got a nail gun and it's always loaded and you got a hankering for shooting nails all over your house and you're like, I really shouldn't be shooting nails right now. I should only nail the things that that need to be nailed. It's just like any other tool. It requires a little bit of
she's trying to get you fat so they don't steal you.
Yeah, probably. I'm not gonna lie.
That is a
technique. Gonna get so rich with all of his crypto that it wouldn't matter anyway.
From his P dye,
all my my P stable is God Trio.
Oh man, that is a tangent that we can go on at some point, but I want to keep it focused on SciVive for the time being.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because as you're describing like what you guys did, Will and Sam, being on the outside of the aisles and stuff like that. Everything you're describing there, I've got her in the background being like, "Yep, I do that. Yep, you got to make sure you do that. Yep." I'm like, "Okay,
that's excellent. I like it. We're all on the same page." That is fantastic.
Yeah, like me when the store, I personally do not buy junk food. Like I cannot have it home. I will just eat it. Like I can say I'll buy a big bag of chips so I can take it to work throughout the week. Nah, I'm just gonna mess it up that same day. Especially chocolate. I can't have chocolate at home. I won't buy it. Like I can't have any junk food at home. I'll just eat it instead of cooking myself something. I'll just reach for something that's easy to just throw in your mouth and just next thing you know, the whole package is gone.
I've got a technique for you, Farmer Jay, that you can actually use to train your mind to not like chocolate.
Don't buy it.
That's a good way. But if you want to, that's actually probably the most effective way is to just not do it in the beginning. The thing I was going to suggest, and this isn't really a good suggestion, this is just a way that I've found to like train myself to not like chocolate as much, is I started buying like the 100% cacao chocolate, which is just incredibly disgusting. Like if you guys ever eat it, like, oh man, it's bitter. It is fucking strong. There is no sweetness, not a bit of enjoyment in eating that stuff. But it got me to the point like where I don't like chocolate as much as I used to because I ate a whole bunch of like the cacao. And so I like the 100%, like they're meant for baking. They're not meant for human consumption, but like, it's almost like a little challenge, kind of like, doing the cold showers and stuff. It's like, oh, can I eat this entire 100% chocolate bar? Can I suffer through it? And then your brain mentally like ties the chocolate flavor to this horrible experience. And then that's one of the techniques that I used, but definitely not buying it. That would be that's much more effective and probably cheaper too. So I agree with that. Zenith, what about you, bro? What kind of food thoughts have you had?
Food is a very interesting thing for me personally because I was an athlete most of my life and I was always doing so much that honestly I just ate whatever I wanted and I still ended up just kind of skinny or at least like very low body fat just as a matter of just doing so much stuff all the time. But to you guys' point, which is that eating healthy is very important, and then also understanding the psychology of like the situations that you put yourself in, and then also just your relationship with food, which is that yes, if you're in the store and you go shopping while you're hungry, chances are you are going to be kind of doing that like sort of Pavlov bell where you're going to be salivating at everything you look at. So you want everything, no matter if it's good or bad, you just want that thing to make you feel like you're not hungry anymore. And then additionally on top of that, it's like Richard Hart had a good quote, which in the book, which was, who are the people that are best at dieting? The people that never need to be on diets, because guess what? They already are on a diet. It just is one that is working. And it's kind of like this subtle thing where it's like, theoretically, like, are they trying to do it? No, but they don't need to, because it's kind of just intrinsic. And when you think about dieting, obviously we're going to touch on this one with the next topic, which I anticipate coming, which is working out. But those two things are intrinsically linked together, because one of them is the intake of calories. The other is the expenditure of calories. At the end of the day, there's a cold, hard calculus to weight loss and caloric intake. And it's just rooted in the conservation of matter and energy, which is that matter can never be created or destroyed. So if you want to create fat on your body, it means you have to create that matter from somewhere else, aka food. And if you want to destroy that fat, that means you have to destroy that matter through some sort of expenditure or caloric deficit, aka working out, or theoretically you could just use your metabolism and eat much less than your metabolism to get rid of that. But then at the same time, this is a very complex topic, because you can also physically alter your own metabolism based on the things that you do. I think Nate mentioned this earlier, which is that the human body is very good at adapting. It will adapt to outside stresses, but it can also adapt to what you do to yourself, whether or not you can be thinking about it. The hindbrain has its own functions that you're probably never going to be able to hack, because that is the part that's evolutionary psychology that's built into us. That is the hardware. As much as you want to think about things, there are some bits of your hardware that you cannot change. Metabolism is one of them. You can increase your metabolism by working out more, or just being more physically fit or active. Like, shout out to all the blue collar guys out there. They know this is for a fact, which is that if you're just out and about working more, you naturally just need more food to physically fuel you. Versus as opposed, if you're just a filthy paper pusher like myself, then you just sit at that desk all day. And it's your body trains itself. It's like, cool, I don't need to expend as much. So your baseline for just keeping yourself warm, keeping your brain functioning, keeping your heart and lungs functioning as well, that baseline just becomes lower and lower. So yeah, what was the point with this? Just cold hard calculus. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, do the math, figure it out, but understand you will alter your own biology and the math that your body requires based on your own activity. And then food is the other half of that equation that we're talking about now, which is that, obviously, put the good stuff in, make sure you're getting everything in there. When it comes to the calculus on the food side, you can talk to the macro bros about this, which is count your macros, understand your protein, your fats, your carbs, your sugars, your sodium, all that stuff. All these different things play a large part of how you operate as a human. Obviously, blood sugar is something that affects people in a pretty moment-to-moment basis, honestly. But if you can make sure that you keep that stuff pretty stable, and then also feed your body with what it needs instead of what it doesn't need, you're going to get the results that you want.
Going back to the sleep part, I think when some of us don't sleep right, we try to compensate by just shoving food in our mouths when we're tired. A lot of times, a lot of junk will throw in our mouths, especially when you haven't rested correctly. You'll just hit the food truck and you'll want to get yourself a sugary energy drink, a honey bun, a Snickers bar. Next thing you know, you've already probably put half the calories that you should have in that day.
Yep.
Oh, 100%. Reese's. Oh, man. You get me going on Reese's. Oh, no. It's all over. And Zenith, to your point, don't worry. When I was in my 20s, too, I could eat anything I wanted and stay skinny. That is until I hit my 30s. So good luck with that. Hunter
Biden has a diet for you.
I'm going to have to get together with him and figure that one out.
The Parmesan cheese diet.
He consumes things with his mouth and his other face orifices.
Yep. Oh, man. The Hunter Biden diet. That's the real Satoshi Nakamoto, I'll have you guys know. Satoshi is actually Hunter Biden. That's my game theory, and I'll die on that hill. That's what I think happened there. Zenith, I do want to hop right into that next topic that you had sort of kind of hinted on, the strength and
Fitness,
conditioning and the working out and fitness. Yeah. So one of the things, so like I didn't take a whole lot of notes on this section of the book, but the one thing that struck me like a whole lot was when he talks about steroids. So for those of you, for like the folks at home who didn't read the passage, he basically sums up like, hey, you can work out a whole lot as like a normal person with who just like wants to invest like X, Y, and Z amount of time into working out, or you can work out like a much less amount and like basically juice and get the same result, or you can like not work out at all and just like be content with whatever like nature throws your way, right? And like there's a whole bunch of other nuances and subtexts in between, but one of the things that I thought was very interesting was he talks about like the futility of working out in certain aspects. Like it doesn't matter how much you work out your hands, you're still going to need a wrench in order to turn that bolt, you know, because like there's some things that you just can't do no matter how hard you work out. So there is a point of diminishing returns. So when folks are going to the gym, or when folks are like going strength and conditioning in their training, like most often people, like they don't want to sit there and physically lift pieces of metal. That's not the reason. Most people are going to the gym and lifting weights so that they can look good, or so that they can boost their self-confidence, or so like the end result, the end goal is like a sense of mental satisfaction. So one of the things that he kind of touches on is like, well, you don't necessarily have to spend all the time in the gym in order to like get the nice, cool muscles. If you just want the cool muscles, you can spend half the time in the gym and then you can go and juice on steroids. I mean, we know that people are buying steroids because they're getting sold. So like, that's one tool that you guys have in your tool belt. And like, whether it's ethical or moral or legal or illegal is all like a point of relevance. And it's all just like, you have to come to your own conclusions and decide like, oh, do I find this thing valuable, or do I find it not valuable? Do I like the idea of getting jacked and juicy naturally, or do I like the idea of getting jacked and juicy faster and spending more of my time doing other stuff? These are all considerations that we have to make with ourselves when we're going down these lines of thought. But that was the thing that stuck out to me the most when Richard was talking about fitness. I don't know. What did you guys think about that portion of the book? Were there any things that really stuck out to you guys when we were reading about this part?
This is one of those parts of the book where Richard Hart's style and kind of like how he thinks about things in the world really shines through, and it plays its best. What I mean by that is, if you went back and listened to the chapter that we talked about with the mind, which is that it seems that he tackles a lot of these things from kind of a very utilitarian view, and he's not afraid to just break things down by the numbers and look at it purely by stats and data coming in, and really shake off kind of those like social mores or the stigmas around certain things. And he's willing to like amorally almost look at some of the data. The steroids example comes into perfect view of this one, but it also helps portray one of the other ideas that I think he kind of lightly touches on in this chapter, which is that understand your goals and understand the trade-offs. Like, you can achieve different things for different reasons, and not everyone is chasing the same goal. Particularly with the steroid example here, it's the idea that back in the day, people were psychologically, whether you're male or female, you're attracted to the idea of a larger, more muscular person, because that means that person is stronger and has a higher survival chance. So as a guy, you probably want to be that sort of thing, just like through this like gut like instinct of like, I want to be big. I want to be the biggest dude around. You don't really have a good answer for it other than just like my monkey brain says, be big. And then conversely, on like the female side of the house, it's like, who is going to be the best mate to have offspring with? The biggest dude. And the answer is, again, it just comes down to survivability. So we live in the 21st century now, which is that we don't have the same evolutionary pressures or the pressures of like living in the wild and trying to fight off the saber-toothed tiger every day. We live in the world of Excel spreadsheets and the BS of like marketing and social media and all that nonsense. So there's not that need for it. However, there still is a use for a lot of people, which is the societal status and like romantic pursuits, which is that you don't have to physically be the strongest or perform the most feats. You just have to look like you can play that part or appear and just create this persona. So steroids in this case is definitely a way to do that. by the way, I personally am not going to endorse doing steroids unless you've like seriously thought about doing it and understand the trade-offs. Because if you do it improperly, A, you can fuck up your own hormones as a guy in particular, especially if you don't do it properly and don't cycle it correctly. B, it will do some damage to some organ. You are kind of using trade-offs now to base. You're either going to be damaging your kidneys or your liver if you do it improperly, or if you do too much of it. But in that case, that's also how you get the giant muscles and you look like Arnold or Mr. Olympia. And then conversely, on the other hand, by the way, if you do just try to go the natty route and just lift as heavy as possible, there are going to be trade-offs to that as well, aka your ligaments are going to be feeling it, especially as you get older. So it's this chapter in particular, in this part, where it's like, look, understand the goal that you want and understand that there are many ways to get there, but there's going to be trade-offs along the way. If you want to look big, you can do steroids. It's going to be easier and quicker than doing all the functional lifting and the dieting and all that stuff. Additionally, if you want to go the other route, you can do that, but understand that that is going to be more of that like functional physicality, as some people talk about. So when it comes to the steroid stuff, like, yeah, understand your goal, understand how to get there, understand what you're giving up to get that way.
I was hearing a little bit of sarcasm actually when he was saying that.
Oh yeah.
I guess the only reason why is because he's like, well, I mean, yeah, you could, do the work and actually get all put together, or you could just take steroids and you're good to go. And I know, and I'm sitting there like, is this sarcastic? And I guess it comes from him being as practical as possible. But you know that if you take those steroids and you get those muscles, you're not going to appreciate them the same way as, say, working hard for them, right? And not only that, but then you also do not have the discipline to continue on to succeed in life as well, because you haven't even worked, right? And so, like, that's the reason why as soon as I heard him be like, oh, just take steroids and you'll be good to go, I was like, I feel like
you still need to. I would say that I'm no steroids expert by any means, but my understanding of it is you still need to do the lifting to get the gains using steroids. You can't just take steroids and drink protein powder and it's good. You still have to break down the muscle fibers. You still have to do the work. You just have to do less of it. So it's like, I want to say it's like 50% or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. And AKA it comes super easy. It's the same sort of deal. Like, it's the same thing as someone who spends 10 years trying to become retired versus someone who started off with a small loan of $1 million and then gets retired off of that.
Or like $100 worth of P-dye or whatever the heck, and then we all just retire super easy. Like it's definitely it's a fun mental and ethical like morality quandary. It's like, should I do the thing that like I would consider easy? Should I do the thing that other people would consider easy? Like, what is the trade-off if I get this thing through the fast and less effort method versus if I put in the blood, sweat, and tears and the effort and stuff. And like, there are going to be people that judge you based on either route that you take. And like, we'll have our own like personal little like, what would you call it? Like self-reflective moments where it's like, oh man, I did this way, that way, or the other way. And so I'm this, that, and the other type of person. So it's like, it's a very interesting little mind game to play. And I'll kind of leave it at that. Sam or Farmer Jay, do either of you guys have any thoughts on this topic?
Where can I get these steroids?
Where can you get the steroids? I don't know. I'm probably under the bridge on the 405 somewhere. I'm sure that you can get them legally.
How close
somewhere
to Tijuana are you?
I don't want them. I think kind of like what Nate was saying, that kind of maybe he was joking around with it, but it's like, do you really want to put the garbage into your body? I mean, at the end of the day, the chapter is about your body. What ramifications are you going to have long term on your body? You only have one body. Once you mess that up, like, that's it. You're not getting another one. There isn't a reset button to your life. There isn't any more lives. Once you mess up your body, you're done. Like, one thing I learned when I first got into the trades was the older guys would always tell me, one thing you never want to go cheap on is your boots. Never go cheap on your boots. You do not want to. I would see these guys in their 40s walking around limping because in their 20s they worked a lot and they worked with cheap boots and they messed up their feet. So that's one thing I always had in my head. Buy good boots. You're on your feet for 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. Sometimes you're working 7 days a week. You do not want to go cheap on those boots. Like, you mess up your feet, you're on them all day. As a tradesman, you're on your feet all day.
Yeah.
Will, what's the saying? Buy good boots, change your socks.
Yep. Buy good boots and change your socks. Drink plenty of water. Have some Motrin. And
2
keep
pairs
hiking.
of boots. I like to alternate my boots between days.
Yeah, that's a good plan as well. And like, this is some good information for the folks out there who are thinking about getting into the trades. That's some advice. I'm glad you brought that up, Farmer Jay, because that's not something I think about often. I do it, like I buy the nice boots and like I take good care of my feet and everything, and I make sure that I get like the good proper insoles, and I'm doing all that. And it's not really something I actively think about. And I think that this is kind of like the ethos of the whole book is like, hey, this is some good advice kind of stuff that folks don't necessarily think about all the time, right? That's most of what SciVive is. It's like stuff that we sort of kind of know, but it helps to be reminded about, you know? It's like there's probably some 18-year-old out there right now who is going to be watching this on replay like 2 or 3 years from now, who might be like, oh snap, I just like joined the trades, and like I'm an HVAC guy, or I'm a plumber, or I'm an electrician, or I'm a framer, and like he's walking around with some garbage ass like Walmart sneakers or something, and then after that he goes and buys some Thorogoods or whatever, you know. But like, yeah, that's a really important thing, and fuck, dude, I'm glad you brought that up. Good shit, Farmer. Sam, do you got anything on the physicality aspect and the working out stuff? I have one last topic on this I want to cover, but I'm going to throw it to you first.
I absolutely do, yes. Nate made a comment that I really wanted to talk about. And he said that, you know, if you take steroids and you're not going to appreciate the muscles as much, right? Because you didn't earn them the same way. You didn't earn them naturally. And first of all, I enjoyed the parallel from the steroids to like crypto gains, right? You know, we have to know stuff to do well in crypto, and it takes effort and attention and discipline for sure. But it's not quite as natural as like someone who has built money from a business that provided a service. So the only thing I really wanted to say here was that it's not that important that, you know, you as a guy don't appreciate your muscles, because remember, it's the women that are going to be doing the appreciating, and big muscles probably feel the same if they've been built with steroids or naturally. And I happen to know that women can contribute largely to a man's mental and physical health.
Some of the equipment might not function right though on steroids.
Oh, well, that's important to know.
That's true.
That's an important feature.
You do trade one pair of body parts for other body parts when you play the steroid game, and I'm sure there's some nuance to it, and there's a balance to be had, and obviously too far on one side of the spectrum and too little on the other. You know, these are all just things, like these are trade-offs that folks have to think about. You know, the last little thing that I want to talk about on this topic of conversation is one thing that Richard kind of mentioned in passing in the book, and that's that he mentioned that fit people get paid more. I don't know if that sentence like stuck out to you guys at all, like while he was talking about that, but I started thinking about it, and he was talking like the concept that like attractive people are desirable to other people. Like whether you're an attractive man and you're hanging out with other men, or you're attractive women hanging out with other women, or vice versa, you know, like mix it up however much you want. The more that people like you, the more that they're going to be like generous and giving to you and stuff. Like the more appealing you are from like a holistic perspective, whether it's your looks, your charisma, your ability to like generate results, like all this thing, like the more checks and the more boxes that you can have in the terms of like, am I someone that other people want to be around, the more likely that you are to be like well compensated for like work that you do. And that's just a function of like, people want to be around people that people want to be around, you know, and people want to retain people that they want to retain. And so like, I'm sure that as a byproduct of that there's some sort of metric somewhere that can be measured some way, somehow to entertain this thesis of like, people who are in shape or people who are attractive get paid more than people who are unattractive or than people who are unfit, right? And like everyone's got like a different place on the spectrum that they would fall in. and there's a lot of different interpretations for things, but there's also a certain baseline for fitness and health and pay and stuff like that. So I wanted to kind of throw that topic out there and have you guys chew on that and mull it over. And I personally agree. I think that I would be much more willing to like do business with like people that I think are also attractive more so than I would be wanting to do business with people that I find unattractive. You know,
No
just
Diddy?
like as a function of like, I want to be around people. What's up?
Said no Diddy.
No Diddy?
No Diddy here.
I don't know
I
what
will
that means.
say, business
Diddy was.
executives don't buy fat secretaries as secretaries.
Yeah. Plus, when you're in shape and you're actually not obese, it shows a certain level of discipline. And if you're somebody that wants to put somebody in charge of a certain project, you want somebody that you know is going to be consistent, that has discipline.
Yeah.
People are usually overweight to a certain point. They don't have discipline. They don't have self-control. And I'm speaking as a little fat boy, you know. But the more you can be in shape, the more discipline you can show, the more likely you are to succeed. So I think there's a correlation to it, that the more in shape you are, it's because you're more disciplined. You're willing to put in the work. You're willing to go the extra mile. If you're willing to do that extra mile, then you're probably willing to do that in your finances as well.
Yeah.
One thing to
It's like
understand
you can't
is that
fake it, right? Oh, go ahead, Nate.
one thing to understand is that we are still ancient, or not exactly ancient, but we're still monkeys on the Serengeti that are currently using technology. So it's taken about 300,000 years for us to learn our instincts, right? And now only in the past, right around 5,000 years, have we really gotten any type of real technology. And it's only truly been in the last 100 years have we really actually had technology where our instincts now are technically wrong. So with that being said, as soon as you see an attractive bias, aka pretty privilege, right, whether that's for a man or a woman, the instinct for us automatically is they must be higher status of some kind. Therefore, they are someone that I can trust. Therefore, I want to either, if I am in that high status, I want to place them in a higher status too, or I need to get close to them and able to advance myself. That's a literal instinct of ours. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to tie together what everyone is saying. So there's 3 levels to this. The first one is by the data. Yes, there's absolutely certain specific things and advantages and outcomes that you can see based on attractiveness or other things that might factor into attractiveness. One of them is, I believe, for men, when it comes to the dating philosophy, to make up the difference between being like, I want to say it's like 5'9" and 6 foot, is that you need to make like an extra 100, or it might be an extra like $60,000. And then if
that's the like the attractive numbers. Yeah,
it's how much income or competence in modern terms do you have to make up for based on your difference in height. That's one of them. Another one is that over a lifetime, someone who is theoretical 2 points higher on an attractiveness scale than someone else, as a guy anyways, over the course of a lifetime, you could make anywhere between $150,000 to almost $1 million more based on pure income, purely trying to set everything else aside and just look at that difference in theoretical attraction. So that's where you see these things playing out by the numbers, and like exactly what Sam said earlier, which is that you don't see rich CEOs hiring unattractive people to be secretaries. And that starts to factor into the second layer of this, which is the subconscious. I think subconsciously, like Nate was alluding to earlier, is that there are things that are programmed into us, and attractiveness and health are 2 of those indicators of either superior genetics and superior genetics effectively, which is that you either just have that good talent or you have a talent to take care of yourself. Both of these are showing the potentially good mating signals or indicators that you are the correct choice for propagation of the species, either just through pure talent or through the ability to upkeep yourself and stay away from disease. Because the other half of this coin is, unfortunately the ugly side for quote unquote ugly people, which is that ugliness kind of like psychologically tries to convey unhealthiness or disease or illness or something, pretty much things you want to avoid. That's the subconscious. Now we can get back to this conscious, which is where all of us want to operate. And I think that we do our best here. And this is more of what Farmer Jay was saying, which is that when you do see these people, when you do see people that are physically fit, it says something that you can draw from. You can logically go step by step and say, this person has taken care of their body, which means they are disciplined, dedicated, and they are able to be consistent. What is this going to translate to for something like, I don't know, a leadership position? These are going to be qualities that you look for. It's the ability to correlate things that you see with your eyeballs to logical assumptions to then pick quality choices for people to be around, to work with, or to get romantically involved with. So yeah, it's all of it. You can see the attractiveness stuff come out in the data, and whether or not we want to believe that we have achieved a higher level of function as humans, at the end of the day, there's a lot of psychological or evolutionary psychology that still factors into how we operate, as much as we try to escape it.
Yeah, and so just to kind of add on with that, Z, the way that humans actually think about things too is instinct first, and then depending on if you're a man or a woman, as a man, it's logic, and then it's emotions, and so we think about something, and then we think about how we feel about it. Whereas women, that's actually reversed. They feel something, and they think about why they felt that way. But that instinct being first is the number one thing that you're talking about there, Z.
Absolutely.
Real quick, Will, I do have one before we get too far away from it.
Yeah.
I'm going to take over for a little bit here. We're going to do this last point, and then we're going to do some shout outs because we got a few.
Oh, thank you.
But to tie back into the diet standpoint, Richard Hart did have one very good quote that I wanted to throw out here, which is that in the 3 minutes that it takes you to eat a cheeseburger, conversely, it would take you about 45 minutes of exercise on the bike to burn the same amount of calories. And he says that is effectively a 12-to-1 ratio of the effort required to expend whatever you put in. So when it comes to the diet and exercise thing, understand that it's a very, very imbalanced equation, and that you will be paying for the sins of your mouth later. But at the same time, if you cannot get smarter, you will get stronger.
There you go. I like that. Let's go ahead and switch on over. This is a good covering of this
quick,
topic.
Will.
Go ahead, Z.
We got chat shoutouts.
Yes, I was about to say let's hop into those.
I almost forgot.
That's
Alrighty,
good.
we got a few people straggling in. We got Hex Glenn. He says, "Hey all, good to see you, my man. Thank you again for showing up on a Friday night. We really appreciate everybody out there. If you can do us a massive favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and then also tweet this out, send it to somebody you like, or even just hit the copy link button, and that also does the same thing on the algorithm. Fun fact." Next up, we got the man who came for the strip club music, but he was too late to hear it. That is Hexkin Lost in Asia. He says, "Go Dodgers." Shout out to Farmer J there, repping the Dodgers hat. He says, "Ohtani hit another home run, but they lost. Hot start, Farmer J."
The sports ball.
Sports ball indeed. We may not be very great at that around here, but we do our best. We got one of our own, Agent J from the DGen Roundtable. Jay says, "What's that old saying? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure." Absolutely. A little bit of effort now can save you a lot of headache or heartache later. And that's in regards to maintaining your body. Because Farmer J, I think you hit the thesis for this chapter right on the head, which is that this is the only body you got. Take good care of it. We got a double tap from Agent J. He says, "Humans are the most adaptable creatures on Earth. That's why we're the top of the food chain, despite nature's attempts to fuck us up to hell."
Every time. Mommy Nature going to be throwing wrenches at us all day long, and our gears and cogs just be chewing through them wrenches.
That's true. I mean, to shout out Jay, and then also what Nate was saying earlier, humans are like surprisingly adaptable, but we're also this like beautiful double-edged sword where it's like humans are the most durable and like maintainable things, and then also we're the most fragile creatures in certain other instances. Like you can
very
watch,
squishy.
Babies.
Yeah, well, that too. You can watch a boxer go 12 rounds in the ring, getting beat the hell up, and then at the end of the day, both the guys are fine. Or you can watch a boxer trip and hit his neck on a stool between rounds and instantly die.
Yep.
I'm just saying,
that's
it's
the
weird.
way.
It's weird like that.
Life's a
Oh,
coin
we got
toss.
Tam. What's up, Tam? She says, "Hey, fam." Hey, Tam. Thanks
Aloha,
for showing up.
Tam
We
Tam.
appreciate you being here.
Our
And
best
lastly,
cheerleader.
Best cheerleader, and we got a good friend of the channel here, and number 2 for the Dark Side of the Moon Club. By the way, we have accidentally expanded that number to 3. Moon Pillar.
All the people have been
Optics.
banned accidentally.
Yeah, the people that got turned out.
Paul Sachs was on Wednesday.
shout out to Paul Sachs. He is number 3 in the Dark Side of the Moon Club. We'll have to do something special for those boys. Moonpill Rational Optics says wife meal preps and freezes 3 months worth of breakfast sandwiches in order to prevent overspending and promote healthy habits. That's one way to do it for sure. That doing the meal prep is using your frontal cortex to override the back of the brain, which is trying to drive sometimes when it really needs to not. All right, that's what we got, Will. Over to you, brother.
Oh man, everything that you were reading off of your Moon-Pilled Rational Optics chat came in as a robot sound. Am I sounding all right now?
Yeah, you're good now.
We do it live. Oh no! Oh god!
Yeah, you are kind of lagging
fiddlesticks.
out a little bit, but we can still hear you just fine. And he's gone. And canceled.
Rugged. Absolutely rugged.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I guess I will do my due diligence and take over here. So, crap. Nope, here it is. All right, so SciVive stuff.
Oh.
Is he back? He's back.
Hey.
Well, what do you want to talk about
back.
next?
I just crossed into Mississippi. I am now in Mississippi, ladies and germs. So I guess no more Louisiana internet. Am I still skipping around everywhere?
No, you're better now.
Okay, sweet. We are better now. We do it live, ladies and gentlemen. We do it live here on the DGen Roundtable, even when I am skipping and hopping all over the place as I drive across the states. So I'm gonna do a big shout out real quick to Dace Northal. I just met up with Dace over in Louisiana not too long ago on my trek over to Florida. He was like, "Hey bro, come swing on by and say hi." So I did just that. We had an excellent time. So shout out to you, Dace. We had a great time. It was super fun meeting him in real life for the first time ever. So I've met almost all of the DGen Roundtable people. Still got to get up to see Nate and Mrs. McGettit, as well as seeing Jeff and I believe Tracker. But that's all details to be covered later. For now, yeah, for real. Tracker's a fun enigma. We love Tracker. He is one smart cookie.
Track him down.
Yep, you gotta track him like a tracker. But yeah, so next up on the topic of discussion, it kind of sort of ties into the whole fitness thing. But one of the things that I wrote down that he had mentioned while talking about fitness is, and I'm surprised I didn't cover this earlier, but he talks about the habit of going to the gym versus the value of the lift. And this kind of ties in a little bit with what Jay Waller talks about when he's speaking of his workout philosophy, which is that the habit is 100 times more important than the lift. So going to the gym, just the act of going to the gym and being there and then like walking up to a machine is way more important than like the amount of like physical weight that you lift. The important thing is to keep that habit going and to maintain that like habit of positive personal growth momentum. So like one of the things that that Sam and I would do when we did towers, and Sam, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm pretty sure you still do this now, is we would call it the shitty workout, which is where every day we would do at least one shitty workout, right? Most often the shitty workout would turn into a good workout just by factor of like, oh, I'm already doing something, I can do more, you know? And like we'd go from like maybe like doing whatever the heck, like whether it's like a 1 minute plank, turn that into like a 10-minute plank, or however long we would go for, or we would do chest or legs or like upside down push-ups or whatever the heck. But like the idea of keeping the habit is so I just want to touch up on his exact words were, the habit is worth 100x the lift. Maintain your good habits. Oh, and I wrote shitty workout underneath that. So that was basically my thoughts on that regarding his little point there. What are you guys' thoughts on, and this doesn't have to just like be with workouts, but I think this kind of applies to everything. Like the value of keeping like that positive flywheel momentum on your habits and not breaking out of them is more important than like whatever the actual like specific item of the habit is. That's a philosophy that I think that I agree with on this particular realm and in many other realms when you apply that same philosophy to it. Do you guys have any thoughts on the positivity of habit maintenance?
Well,
Go ahead, Farmer Jay.
I'll also speak on the shitty workout. Like you said, sometimes you'll just go to the gym, you don't feel like it, and you'll just be like, I'll just do 30 minutes, just 30 minutes. And 30 minutes into your workout, then you start going, and next thing you know, you're there for 2 hours. It just ends up being a good workout because you just get pumping, you start rolling, and like you said, it's the habit of actually going, the discipline of actually just going. Like if you put yourself there, it's just like the hardest thing at work is actually getting up and getting to work. Once you're at work, you're there. You're not going anywhere. Like you're already on the clock. You're getting paid. It's like you're not going to want to leave at that point. But in the morning when you got to get up and get your stuff together, lace up your boots and get there, that's the hard part. Once you're there and you get going, though, I think that's where that discipline comes in.
I like that, bro. Go ahead.
I've actually got a lot of experience with that because I always call it the routine, right? So at my work, there is a routine that you do at every single house because it's all preventative maintenance, quite frankly, as far as like pests go. And so when I'm training people every single day, I run them through every single step of that routine. And the thing that I try and get people on is like, hey, this routine, you're going to get so good at it that you could close your eyes and do it, right? And that's the type of thing that you're talking about, or that Hart was talking about, when it's like, hey, even if you're not going to be lifting anything, go there and pretend to lift anyways, because you keep that routine rolling, you know? Oh boy, we lost them again. But yeah, so if you keep that routine going, though, you no longer have to start thinking about what it is you're doing or have to remotivate yourself to go do something again. You know, you can just automatically do it. And the way that I tell all my trainees, and I've kind of thought of myself, is it's like your brain only has so much RAM, right? So much processing power. So if I'm sitting here thinking about every single step that I've got to go do, then I'm thinking constantly about this job that, quite frankly, instead what I could do is get myself into automatic mode, plug in and start learning more about, like, say, crypto or something else that's very interesting that I want to learn about, right? So it's the same sort of deal with getting those routines down, so that way you no longer are having to sacrifice processing power for your brain. You know, even when you go there and have your little shitty workout, right, you can still be thinking about, hey, where am I going to go today? You know, what am I going to do? You know, oh yeah, I needed to contact this guy about this business proposition, you know, things like that. And you can kind of go off over there, but it's all about the routine, you know?
I'm gonna hop off of that and say that, like, there's a lot of value in the specifically the part of, like, the not thinking about making these all of these good decisions that, like, we think of, like, the person we could all be if we all made all of the right decisions every single day for like a year. You'd be a totally different person, right? So, you know, what you want to do is you want to make, and like that takes willpower and energy. And so what you'd rather do is put yourself in a position where you don't have to you don't have to think about it. You can just do the things that you understand are going to be better for you. And you may not want to do it when you're kind of in the moment, but like if you've already made the decision earlier, like you're already committed to it. It's kind of like, you know, if you're going to take a cold shower, like if you just plumb your house with only cold water, then you never have to worry about making that decision ever again. You just know that you're always going to have cold water, and like, you just don't worry about it. It's like, it is what it is. So
that's a good little
thing
on
this one. Yeah, to not to get too sloganistic with it, but discipline beats inspiration and motivation every time, and hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't work hard enough. The idea behind the terrible workout, or I know, right? The idea behind the terrible workout, or the idea of doing the things that are unfun even when you don't want to do them, is that it kind of goes back to the whole luck or the opportunity thing, which is that in order to be in the position to do well or receive the benefit from something, you got to be in the position. And that means you got to be in the gym, whether you feel like being there or not. And then additionally, on top of this, the larger metagame as a whole is the reality is that in the society we live in, if you want to be exceptional, then that means that you're going to be competing against other people for limited opportunities, limited positions, limited real estate in whatever area you're trying to operate in. And what that means is that just because you're not in the gym doesn't mean that everyone else is also taking the day off. It means that every day that you are not doing the work, it means someone else is doing the work. And granted, this can absolutely get taken too far, and you believe that if you are not achieving 110% efficiency all the time, there's no point in trying. That's not the case at all. The point here is that discipline is the builder of all the habits, and it's what's going to be helping you stack those small wins along the way. Whether it's in the gym, whether it's making DCAs in crypto, whether it's stacking knowledge or even just professional knowledge at a job. It all just comes down to, if you're just consistently putting in the effort, you're going to be a lot farther on than if you only worked when you felt motivated or inspired. And when you stack up against everyone else in the field, the people that put in the work, even when they don't want to, those are the people that become the exception. They are the exceptional ones.
Well, that reminds me of the last book that we covered, The Outliers, with the 10,000 hours thing. It's like, if you don't take the opportunities to do the little like discipline maintenance work that you're talking about, then it's going to take you longer to stack up to that 10,000 hour expert mode, and then you're going to be behind the people who are working on Sundays. You know, you're going to be behind the like that's one of the things that Patrick Bet David. For those of you guys, shout out to Patrick Bet David if you're listening, bro. I appreciate you tuning into our channel. I doubt you are, but you know, like that's one of the things that he talks about all the time is like, hey, I'll work on Saturdays. I'll work on Sundays sometimes because I know that all my competition, they're not doing it. And so I've got an extra 24 hours every single, like times 52 weeks a year, you know, or 48 hours even, right? And that's a whole lot of extra work time that like that he would be getting in, as opposed to all the people that like he'd be working against and stuff. And this, I think it ties in really well with what you're saying, Z, that like getting that discipline and keeping that consistency. What was the saying that you said, that like the discipline will outwork the
discipline beats motivation and inspiration.
Yeah, and then there was another one.
The other one, yeah, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard enough.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like if people don't work hard for a thing, like, or as hard as other people, then they're not going to be as competitive, and they're going to be like lower on the totem pole. And like realistically speaking, we're all in this great big game of competition here in life. We're all competing against each other in some realm or another. We're all trying to take all the resources. We're all trying to like have the most money, like the most children, all that stuff. And like we would do well to do all of these little tiny preventative maintenance things all of the time. So that way we have the biggest competitive edge. That way we can get the most of our goals accomplished. And that way other people will have as least leverage over us as possible. So I think it all just ties in really, really well. Does anyone have any final thoughts on this before I boost us up to the next topic? Yeah, go ahead, Z.
So one of the reasons that I like Speed of Trust, the book, is it's a standout for me in the reading, because when it talks about the principles it also says, here's the good case. Here's the case that happens if you take things too far. I think one of the downsides to the way that we live nowadays is that we are all competing for attention and eyeballs, which means that really the extremes and the outliers really take up the majority of the attention, and that's what people see the most. I think if you look at the whole hustle bro culture thing, it's an outgrowth of this and almost can take these principles to a corrupting point, which is that a lot of what we've seen in this book is how to operate at 100% efficiency. Obviously, none of us operate at 100% efficiency, and we do things like there's a reason that we are not all like strictly sleeping 8 hours every day, waking up super early, having a strict routine every time with 0 deviations. And the reason is that as humans, we are irrational and imperfect. There's plenty of studies about how humans are like perfectly imperfect or like efficiently inefficient. Like imagine yourself at an airport. How many times do you see someone sitting next to someone that they don't know? Almost never, because there's usually that gap space in between, because people have this built-in inefficiency, which, I mean, ironically comes from back in the day of self-preservation, of keep yourself distance from people you don't know or possible threats. But at the same time, you get back to the point, which is that understand you're never going to operate at 100% efficiency. And when we compare ourselves, a lot of times we're comparing ourselves to that 4th, 5th, 6th standard deviation away from the norm. And we're not all going to be that person, because obviously that person is like 0.001% of the population. However, I got to say, at the same time, if you're shooting for 90% or above, I'd argue that's pretty damn good. So understand that life has these different trade-offs that we choose to accept or not choose to accept. I think morality is one of those. Morality is going to be something that's kind of been left out of this entire book up to this point, which is that you can operate from like common law or natural law theory, which is that you're trying to do things that promote human flourishing and reduce suffering, and also try to adhere to this code of morality. But what Richard Hart talks about in this case, it goes back to the steroid example, which is that yes, there are ways to achieve things. However, there are certain trade-offs or certain like morality clauses that are attached to certain things, which we as humans or society have started to put in place. So to get back to overcorrecting or going too far, it's the idea of the whole hustle bro thing, which is that, yeah, you can work at as much as you can every day as possible, but at the same time, understand what you want out of your life. If you want to be Steve Jobs, understand what it takes to be Steve Jobs. That man does not have the same pleasures that you have in your life with, I don't know, like, I don't know if Steve Jobs has a family or not, but I can tell you that he probably didn't live like a very community-focused life. I imagine that the man was very much business-oriented, and I think that if you go read his book, which I have not yet, maybe we'll do that one in the future, you'll see that he's very much focused on that, and it's one-dimensional. So the whole point of this is that, yes, you can take care of your body, but also understand that your body is part of you and your enjoyment of life. And this kind of goes to the whole alcohol point, which is that, is booze bad? Yes, booze is very bad. Yet there's still a purpose and reason to some things. And at the same time, yeah, maximize your life, but also understand that your goal is your own. It's not everyone else's. But if you're trying to be Steve Jobs, be Steve Jobs. If you're not trying to be Steve Jobs, live good principles and shoot for the outcome that you want. Sorry. Soapbox complete.
No, bro, that's perfect, because that ties me into the next topic of conversation that I wanted to touch on, which was like the alcohol and drugs and supplements and other things part of the book. And so I'm gonna read through a couple little quotes here, and then we can go ahead and hop on into the discussion.
What
the first one.
Drugs you speak of? I've never heard of them.
Oh, what are the drugs?
Do not know.
There's tons of drugs that exist. Tons of drugs that exist. We got Adderall, fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, all sorts of things. Coffee.
I have never engaged in any of these illicit behaviors you speak of.
I believe you 100%.
I am a very heavy user of Tylenol.
Willow tree bark. Well, so listen, so there's the way that I see it, I take a look at drugs from like a very objective point of view, and this is my own personal interpretation. If going around and chewing on willow tree bark makes you not feel pain, and that's a good means to an end, and you like it, and you're not going around like beating people up to death, then excellent. If people want to go and slam heroin so that way they stop feeling pain, and that's their means to an end, then hey, it doesn't bother me as long as it doesn't bother me. But when people start using drugs in such a way that the drug is not the problem, the person doing the action is the problem, and the drug just helps them get to the point where they're doing the action, right? So I don't have any personal qualms. I don't mind talking about methamphetamines or cocaine or man, those are the only drugs that come to mind. Marijuana or coffee or Tylenol or Bitcoin or whatever kind of drugs people use to satiate themselves and solve all their problems. I think they're all just tools that can be used and can be misused, much like fire. You can use fire to cook your food, or you can use it to burn your neighbor's house down. There's many ways that we can use all sorts of tools. But real quick, I'm going to cover one of the quotes that I have written here, and it's that alcohol is a loan against your future that you must pay back with interest. And I think that's more of an acute and chronic. It could be interpreted from an acute perspective, which is that hey, you'll have a hangover the next day, or it can be interpreted from a chronic perspective, where it's hey, if you drink a shit ton of alcohol for a long time, you're taxing your body very heavily, and your future self is going to be the one to pay for it. I think that's the only quote that I had. I know that he the other quote, and this one's a little bit different, right? So on the subject of drugs, don't let doctors or don't let pharmaceutical companies use you as their test bed to figure out what are the adverse reactions that they put on pill bottles later, right? So on the subject of using drugs, if you try a new experimental drug, keep in mind that a lot of drugs have side effects. Not all the drug side effects are known and found out by the time that it reaches you. Most of them are, hopefully, because we live in a first world country where these things are sort of kind of the norm. But oftentimes there'll be experimental drugs, or there will be drugs that's like we don't necessarily know. Everybody's different. Every human body corporeal form is slightly different than the other, so we don't know how all the drugs are going to react to all the people. So like something that might not hurt me or Zenith might like cause Nate to like break out in hives or something. Like you want to use drugs in moderation unless you know exactly what it is that you're doing, unless you understand all the aspects and all the use cases of this particular tool that you might be using. Like just caveat emptor, buyer beware when you're using drugs, whether it's alcohol or coffee or Tylenol or Bitcoin or whatever. So that was my interpretation of the drugs portion of the of that section of the book. Did you guys have any thoughts on the drugs section of this chapter 2?
Yeah, I got another Richard Hart quote from this chapter, which was that alternative medicine that works stops being alternative medicine and instead is just medicine.
Yes.
And he uses this point to highlight that, like, you can believe that certain things work, and the reason that people stick to things that aren't actually working is kind of just sunk cost fallacy, or honestly just ego, which is that it's so hard to convince someone that they're doing something wrong as opposed to convincing someone that they're doing something right. And when it comes to alternative medicine, yes, there is like cutting edge, like innovative things. However, if it truly does work, it stops being innovative and starts becoming the standard.
Yeah. I have a slight correction on the quote. The quote, and I've heard Richard say this a whole bunch of times. It's a lot easier to scam someone than it is to convince them that they have been scammed. And that's the general principle. So like you were talking about Steve Jobs earlier. Steve Jobs tried eating fruit to solve his cancer, and then he died, or whatever sickness it was that he had.
He had cancer, and Richard Hart talks about how it was like he was eating fruit thinking that was going to cure it because he didn't want to get surgery, even though surgery was the correct choice.
Yeah, and same thing with Bob Marley. Bob Marley died of like melanoma that spread from his toe to like the rest of his body. And Bob Marley's dying quote to his son, let's see if I can pull it up here. If I have it, I'm quite certain that I do. Where is, oh yeah. Money can't buy life, but prompt scientific medical treatment could have. So like, this is kind of like the hubris of like pseudoscience and like fake medicine. A lot of people, they will unfortunately fall for, scam is the wrong word, but like just incorrect medicine. You know, there's things that work, there's things that don't work. There's like pseudoscience, which is where like if you peel a banana like 3/4 and then you bury it on a full moon, then like you're guaranteed to have a baby boy when you get pregnant, like on June 15th or something, right? Like it's way easier to convince someone that is the truth than it is to like change their mind after they've already been convinced that is the truth. And so like a lot of the like one of Richard Hart's philosophies is that he tries to scam people with good stuff before they have the opportunity to get scammed by bad stuff. And that's part of why he marketed Hex the way that he did when he first created it. He's like, I'm trying to trap people who are really easy to trap and are going to fall for some dumb shit and they're going to lose all their money and they're going to get wrecked, you know, like in the long term and stuff. He's trying to save people from themselves essentially. And it kind of just like it falls into the whole medicine stuff and the whole drug use. And I don't want to trail down this too far, but Zenith, was that more or less the end of your thought that you had there?
That was the end of my thought, which is that use the good things that are proven. They've been proven for a reason.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm thinking about here is like, okay, so alternative medication is going to be alternative and stay alternative. And if it actually worked, then it would become, mainstream medicine, right? But experimental medications and treatments are experimental until they are proven and then become mainstream. And so the experimental ones are a little bit of a 50-50, I guess you could say. It's either going to work or it is not going to work. And so what I'm hearing Richard say is, saying here is simply, hey, do not wait on if you're healthy enough, right? Do not wait for something, or sorry, I'm saying that backwards. Wait until something has been proven first before you go with it. Whereas what he's saying is he doesn't want you to actually not wait and just go ahead and go with some sort of experimental drug.
Yeah. Well, one of the other quotes that he has in there that I only just remembered now is he talks about like weighing the cost of the adverse effects of the medicine versus like the potential benefits. So I think that the example that he used was if you're a crazy person, or like if you have a family history of like insanity and going crazy at some point, and instead of like succumbing to that insanity, you could then take an experimental drug that you know is going to make you pee yourself all the time and do and like some other whatever, that then it's like, hey, that trade-off might be worth the cost of not being crazy for the rest of your life. You know, you might trade like having to wear diapers or go to the bathroom more often for the cost of like doing an experimental drug. So it wasn't, I think that you got it pretty well, like hit on the head there, Nate. I would just add the caveat that it's like some people might find themselves in positions where it's worth it to leverage the potential side effects of medicine. It's just it pays to know what you're doing. Is I guess the ultimate like end result is like, hey, if you know that this shit's experimental, but you're in like a really desperate situation, then it might be the best bet to like try some experimental stuff.
Well, like you have a terminal illness. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, exactly. You know, like you're already like, and that's I think where a lot of like scientific breakthrough comes from, is like people that are generous in their, or maybe not generous / desperate, or just like willing to take the risks, I should say. You know, folks that are willing to like try the new experimental drug and see if it works. And it's probably pretty sad for the folks that it doesn't work on, and it's probably fantastic and life-changing for the folks that it does. But yeah, like terminal illness people, or people with like brain malfunctions, I'm willing to bet that they'd be happy to take Elon Musk's like Neuralink brain chip thing when it comes out, if it gives them like the ability to like get their speech back, or get like motor function back, or to be able to communicate with people or something like that. And you know, it's just people have to weigh the potential cost benefit against their circumstances and things. Sam, do you have any thoughts?
Go for it.
Nah, I'm good. I just do all of them.
Okay. Go ahead, Zenith.
I was going to say everything's trade-offs. If the thing that you're trading off is certain death because you already have certain death, then all of those pros look pretty darn good.
Yeah. Yeah, they do a good job of. Go ahead, Zenith.
I got a final. We're approaching the top of the second hour here, and I got a final circle that I want to square with the boys, which is that we are talking about the body chapter, aka how to make sure your body lasts the longest by like, I don't know, not drinking, being fit, dieting correctly, being in shape. Yet the man that wrote this is famously not Mr. Olympia, or arguably close to the healthy BMI. So
correct.
I'm glad you brought this up.
So it's like, I think this is one of those things where it's very easy to look at Richard Hart and then also look at this chapter and ask yourself the question, is he not living this? Therefore, I should discard all this information. Or conversely, it kind of goes to a larger point, which is that this is a book written around the theoretical 100% best way to operate as a human, and understanding that everyone falls short, but the standard still applies, even if we fail to uphold the standard.
I would say that it would.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Farmer.
Yeah, Farmer.
I think those.
I wasn't going to say. I didn't say
that was me. Yeah. So what I have to say to that is like the whole like idea of a coach, right? Like the best coaches in the world are not the best basketball players because they're playing basketball. The coaches are the ones who know how to get the things out of people and teach the right concepts to get people moving in the direction that helps them optimize. You do not need the coach to be the best at shooting basketball hoops. That's all.
Yeah, the skills for teaching are different than the skills for executing. Right. And I think that like from a like a confidence perspective, like I want to see the person living the example of the advice that they're giving. And it does like if I see a fitness guy giving fitness advice and he's a fat piece of shit, then it's like, okay, like I might not take what you say. It's like, you know, you go to a steakhouse and a vegan is serving you a fucking delicious, like medium rare steak or some shit. It's like, I don't know if I would trust this person to do this, but like on the same token, like a person's skills don't necessarily reflect on on there. So I suppose the answer that I'm trying to say is it's nuanced, right? But it would inspire more confidence if I saw the person who's giving the advice to also be the embodiment of the advice. That's what I will say, is that I would like, it would be so much more of like a complete picture if Richard was the person that he like advised other people to be as well, you know? And he's not necessarily. Well, actually, I don't really know. He could have gotten fit. Like, he's been off camera for a long fucking time. What if Richard comes back to streaming? I'm gonna go ahead and call this. And I don't know. Like, I would hate to be proven wrong, but like, wouldn't that be nifty if Richard goes and pops on stream and he's fucking yoked or whatever the hell? You know, he's like he hops back on stream and he's no longer fat Richard, and he's instead like super fit Richard. You know, like if he looks like he belongs on a Magic Mike show or whatever the hell. How cool would that be? And like not only that, if like Vitalik Buterin came up behind him and Vitalik's also fucking yoked, and then like Sergey the Chainlink guy, he then shows up right behind the two of them, and he's also jacked and juicy. And then so is Hunter Biden. Yeah, and then Hunter Biden shows up too, and he's like, by the way, guys, I was Satoshi Nakamoto the whole time. And just all the crypto guys show up, and they're all just fucking big jacked, and they're ready to roll. They're a whole bunch of like fucking, you know, positive masculine, like physical specimens or whatever the heck, you know, just good examples, like the He-Man Master of the Universe. Yeah, exactly. They're all dressed like Conan the Barbarian, holding swords and stuff. Like, I think that would be really cool. On a serious note, it would be awesome if like Richard used this time that he's been away to really focus on personal improvement. And I don't want to set any false expectations. I don't really think that that's the case. But like, man, a guy can dream. I think that would be nifty if he came back to streaming and he was just like fit and physical. Oh, excuse me. I just like embodying all the advice that he's giving in the SciVive book.
It would be
I'll
nice.
just
I think
say
that would
this.
be really cool.
Go for it, Nate. What you got?
The one thing, so like what you had to say there, Z, I think is correct. And then so here's the way that I'm kind of viewing this, right? I think that most everything that he's talking about, you know, Richard does actually employ, but I think especially when it comes to like, say, working out and things like that, you know, unfortunately it's a little more visual, but you know, it's easy to see that he really doesn't do that. And yes, you're correct. It would employ more confidence if he actually looked like what it is that he says we should be doing. However, using the example of like football players, right? The coaches are usually the average players. Those are the best coaches. Why? Because it's like, hey, I've lived the life. Okay. You know, I played the game and I know how it works. Now, was I the greatest of all time? No. You know, I was kind of on that average, you know, slide, but I know how it works and I can help you maybe with more skill than me or more of a drive than me to actually succeed. And that's why they're the best coaches. Whereas if you get a superstar, right, he's going to say, do it my way. And then that's it. So in this particular case, it would be someone who's jacked and juicy saying, hey, do exactly what it is that I did. And you can be just like me. Versus Richard saying, you know what? So I'm definitely not, you know, super jacked and juicy and all that, but hey, here's the way it works. So I've thought a lot about this and I kind of lived it a little bit, but you know, obviously, as you can tell, I'm not 100% this, but if you follow what it is that I'm saying, you can't disagree with it and it'll work for you. So I think it's kind of that whole mid-range thing where it's like, you really don't want to be following the superstars saying, do it exactly the way I do it. Right. Instead, here's the basics, take it as is, and now go make it your own.
Challenging question for you, Mr. Brother Will. Would you rather have Richard Hart focusing on getting jacked and juicy, or would you rather have him focusing on how to beat all these other millionaires and billionaires and pumping our coins and taking over and making Pulse Chain the new best thing?
I would rather have him, well, you know, I like the new answer is I would like him to do both. But if it's like a one or the other choice, then yeah, I would be much more pleased with him focusing on all of us as a community, rather himself as a paragon of like physical excellence. So that's a good point.
I'll try to flip your question on its head, which is that, is it more useful for us, or what theoretically would be more useful for the most people? Would it be whether that he started practicing what he preaches when it comes to the physical things, or is he able to offer more value to people through being better at his specialty, which he already is?
Perhaps he would get a wider audience if he was jacked and juicy.
Farmer J, you're on mute, by the way. There you go.
I don't think it's necessarily that he's trying to preach this. It's more of he's kind of just giving us facts of like understanding your body, and what you do to it gives you certain results. Like he's just acknowledging truths. It's not really that he's telling us that this is the way he's going to live. It's just this is the way this is the way things are, and if you choose to do these things, these are going to be your results. So if you want to work out, if you want to take shortcuts, these are going to be your results. If you want to drink, and obviously he's showing us that he does the complete opposite, which is fine. But it's not like he's telling us you guys need to do this. It's more of if you do these things to your body, these are probably going to be the results.
Farmer J, I think you hit the nail square on the head there. This absolutely seems more of like the philosophical exploration rather than a testimonial about what works based on your own experience. And what I mean by that is like, this is exploring truth. Like you said, it's exploring ideas and thinking about it logically and really boiling down to the essence of what the question is asking. In this case, it seems that the entire question of SciVive is, how do you live your best life? And it's not answering that for a specific person out there. It's answering it kind of for that like 50% in the middle. This is the general advice that you can give everyone based on the reasoning that we can walk through step by step. So yeah, it's not testimonial. It's more philosophical.
That's a good point. I think that's a good spot to go ahead and end this fantastic podcast here. This has been a fantastic coverage of the mind, or excuse me, of the body portion of SciVive. Gentlemen, why don't we go ahead and go around the room, tell the folks at home what we're doing in the near future, where can they find you, et cetera, and we'll go ahead and wrap this bad mambo jamba on up. Zenith, why don't you go ahead and start us off, brother?
Will do. So coming up on the show here on Sunday, we have our usual Sunday show at 8 p.m. Eastern time, which is when we do all of the shows. And then Wednesday, after the Sunday show, we have Matty All In coming in and hanging out with us for a special guest episode. We are very excited to talk to him about everything Hex Conference, Pulse Chain Conference, Time Pays Me, and whatever else he is up to. I had a chance to hang out with him in Vegas. He's a very fun guy to hang out with, and he also has a very unique way of approaching certain topics in the crypto space, which I think is very different from the average influencer out there, like perhaps us per se. Regardless, I am Zenith. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at ZenithDI. That is my personal page. And if you want to check out some memes or edutainment, you can check out Hexaco's Space Force on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. That's what I got. Over to Mr. Nate.
Yeah, again, I am the Ascending Man, and I'm with the DJ Roundtable. We're out here having lots of fun doing lots of shows constantly. We do have some shows possibly in between, on the Thursdays and the Mondays and the Tuesdays coming up. We are working them out, so stay tuned, guys. All right, make sure you hit that subscribe button, the little belly button as well. That way you get the notifications, because I'll tell you what, when these shows pop up, it's going to be very special. But then also, yes, as Zenith is pointing out right now, you absolutely need to get into that Telegram group. It's actually kind of insane just how much alpha is dropped in there. And not only that, but also there is a lot of people who would have gotten wrecked if it wasn't for being in that group. What was it? It was just like 2 days ago that we had this dude come in with this one coin. He started shilling it, and we jumped on him immediately, just saying, hey, can you give us more details? And our entire community just started kind of clowning on the guy because he just kept shilling it over and over. And so we banned him. I kicked his ass out because I ain't gonna stand for that shit. And we watched that coin, and it rugged. That would have been a lot of people that would have lost.
It's good to see when a whole community jumps on a scammer, and everybody, like, not just the admins, not just us, like the DGen Roundtable, like leadership crew, but when just like everybody hops on and everyone knows how to recognize a scammer, and everyone says, hey, stay away from this guy. This guy's bad news bears. That's fucking awesome, Nate.
Exactly. And it's absolutely fantastic. So if you're newer to crypto, this is actually kind of a safe haven for you because you are able to ask questions. And kind of like what I did originally when I was learning, I went through the difficulties, right, on purpose. There was a lot of things I could have done in the Citadel that just would have been like, hey, ask question, and they would have guided me to here's what you do, or here's what you should buy instead. But rather, I actually went and said, okay, I'm gonna go study myself, try and figure it out, and then I'm actually gonna do it myself. And if something pops up where I don't even know what to do anymore, then I'll ask a question. But I mean, you're getting a good safe haven that you're able to go out there and experiment with the crypto space and not get destroyed. Because the first, unfortunately, if you're newer in the crypto space, this is when you lose your money, which is very sad. But yeah, no, get in that Telegram. It's free for now. But even when it is paid, it's still going to be well worth it. So get in, guys.
Excellent. Mr. Sam, what's going on with you in the near future? Where can the folks find you? And yeah, go ahead and give us a little bit of an outro there.
Sure thing, guys. If you want to learn about construction and how to fix your grandma's broken sink and get strong and burn extra calories, fix your metabolism and all of these wonderful health things, then check out Bungalows for Bachelors on YouTube. It's spelled Bungalows for Bachelors. And if you want to see other stuff I do, you can go to thesam.pls.fyi. And if you want to check out our Telegram for Bungalows for Bachelors, where we share all kinds of cool stuff and stories, and you can get questions answered and all that stuff, it's on, of course, I just said Telegram. That's t.me/BFB success, because we are about success. Otherwise, if you want to learn how to eat healthy, then you should check out the book coming out. My brother's two of them soon.
Hey,
and
I like it.
That's it.
Are there any teasers? Are there any? Oh, it's not. Oh, we're just hinting at its near arrival.
Yes. It's
okay.
It's got one last task that it needs before it'll be done.
Okie dokie. Well, excellent. I appreciate it, Sam. Mr. Farber J, where can the folks find you? What do you got going on in the near future? What's going on? Tell us a little bit about yourself if you wish. If you got nothing, then you could pass it right on back to me. But yeah, what's going on, brother?
You just find me in the DGen Roundtable chats. That's just where I'll be. Got nowhere else.
Excellent. All right.
I'll be on more of these occasionally here and there whenever you guys need somebody to fill in.
Hell yeah, appreciate it, brother. Well, we appreciate you hopping on the stream. This is your second stream, your second live stream, isn't it?
Yeah.
Doing it right here with the DGen Roundtable. We appreciate it, broski. So, like he was saying,
only with the DGen Roundtable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Roll.
I love it. So for those of you guys who are not already in the DGen Roundtable community, what you guys can do is you can scan that little QR code right down there with your phones. You can screen cap it, you can copy and paste it, whatever. That will take you directly over to our Telegram, and you will be offered to join it up for free. It is free right now. It's not always going to be free. If you don't want to scan that QR code, you can click the link down in the description below. It's also got the links to all of our socials here on the panel. And like Farmer J was saying, he can be found in the description. And if you guys don't want to do any of those things, then you can type in bit.ly/degenerate_roundtable up in your uniform resource locator up at the top of your web page. You hit enter in there, and that'll also bring you over into our Telegram. Like Nate was saying, it's free for now. It's not always going to be free. We really appreciate you guys watching. Mrs. Producer, go ahead and get that trigger finger ready. For those of you guys who don't know who I am, my name is Will Stevenson. You guys can find me and everything that I do at linktree/Will Stevenson. We want to make sure to thank every one of you guys for spending your valuable time with us. As we know, to quote Agent Jay Schroth, our TA analyst, oh shoot, man, I'm getting the quote. I'll butcher it up. We know that time is your most valuable asset, and so we want to thank you for spending that valuable asset with us. And with that, we want to remind you guys to DGen responsibly.